everyone. Welcome to our next Future of Care chat. Today, we're talking about program management and what makes for a successful implementation when you're launching a new care management system. We're joined by Tracy Styles, our Senior Director of Program Management today. Tracy comes to VirtualHealth with a wealth of experience, first in the nonprofit sector with doing population health with federally qualified health centers, and then with over a decade of care management implementation experience in the consulting world with a variety of different platforms and clients. So we're very happy to have her on the team and to benefit from her expertise today. First and foremost, this sounds simple, but I know it's not. And that's what makes for a great implementation. Obviously, I think a lot of people have been through implementations that haven't gone so well, and there's definitely a recipe for success. So we'd love to hear a little more about that from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So a successful implementation really depends on the fundamentals of project management. When we consider this from the perspective of the Project Management Institute and other experts in this area, there are really three areas that they focus on to define a good project. Those areas are time, cost, and scope. So what that means basically is we are ensuring that our scope is consistent with what we originally set out to accomplish in this project. So that really depends upon defining the goals of the project as well as the measures of success, or so that we can build to that goal. Additionally, it means defining the time that this project has. By definition, any project has a specific limit on how long it can take. And then lastly, we also have our cost considerations. So those cost considerations, especially in the software space, are primarily composed of resource, time, and then also licensing and other things like that. So when you begin a good project, the most important thing to start with is a clear idea of what you want. In addition to that, some of the other elements that ensure a high quality project are quality control measures. Those are both critical from an engineering as well as a business standpoint. So from a business standpoint, quality means we understand what we are intending to do. We have folks who can make decisions based on the business knowledge and have a really good subject matter expertise in the given area. From an engineering perspective, that means that we have appropriate checks in place. We have a robust QA process, and we are gathering requirements in a way that is effective and clear to both the business and the development teams. There are numerous areas that go into this. It's a very intricate and nuanced process, but at a high level, that is what defines a good project.
That's great. I certainly remember the project management triangle, and that definitely fits. So obviously there's the things you can do to plan, right? And to be prepared, but then there's also best practices during the project to make sure that things run smoothly and that communication is good. Can you talk a little bit about how those might work and what you've seen be successful there?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, the most important thing is communication. Projects are by definition and nature unpredictable, right? A lot of the roadblocks that can come up can be avoided completely or at least mitigated by good communication between all parties involved. Oftentimes, especially in software implementations, that means the customer as well as the vendor and any other vendors who are tied into this as well. As we all know, usually we have an ecosystem of software that is working together. So that added level of complexity makes communication even more critical. One other critical area is change control. So change control, simply put, is the idea that we defend our original scope, what I just spoke about a moment ago. So we came in with a goal, we know what we're here to do. If halfway through the implementation, our needs change, which often happens, honestly, that is something that has to be considered carefully to ensure that it does not threaten the overall triangle that we had mentioned at the beginning of a good project. So that often involves really intentional consideration of a change that's requested. So for example, if the customer requests to expand the scope to include some new features, that request is then quantified very clearly and then discussed with the stakeholders on both sides. So with our business as well as the customer. And during that process, we're able to identify the value and the time required so that the leaders of the project can make an intelligent decision about whether the value will be worth the potential impacts to the project.
And I think it's a good segue into the next one, which is, in spite of all of the best planning and preparation possible, things can and do change, right? So what are the common pitfalls that you see and the best practices for anticipating and avoiding those, right? Even if you can't avoid everything, you can mitigate. And I'm curious how you, in your wealth of expertise, anticipate and resolve those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Best practices and pitfalls often go hand in hand, right? We have our best practices because we know that they help us avoid pitfalls. So some of the best practices for a successful implementation include defining a clear scope. They include adequate resource allocation on both sides, and that's something that's really critical. They also include clear communication. It also includes risk mitigation strategies. So some of the biggest challenges in projects often come down to communication. Communication is really the most important piece, as I mentioned before, because any issue that does come up is going to be mitigated by the folks on the team. And I think that's one area where VirtualHealth specifically really excels. We're able to communicate well within our teams, and we have a lot of collaboration built into our structure. And that allows us to come with a really cohesive approach and then meaningfully engage with our stakeholders to come up with the best decision or the best mitigation strategy for a given problem.
So you mentioned a lot about best practices. I think what makes the virtual health process unique, and how do we sort of ensure success for our clients?
Absolutely. VirtualHealth really works hard to collaborate between all of our teams. We have a lot of processes in place that allow us to have visibility across all of our individual teams within the organization. So we begin our process by consulting with the customer, sitting down with a business analyst, as well as representation from our engineering and quality assurance departments. From that point, we gather clear requirements from our customers, and we really work to get an understanding of the business. Understanding the customer's business is really critical to making sure that we deliver a product that will be effective and meet the needs of our individual customers. From that point, our project management team collaborates with our engineering teams and other teams who are impacted by this to ensure that we're able to give clear understanding of the roadmap ahead for our customers. From the project management side, we ensure that we have clear communication with the customer with regular touch points, as well as technical sessions. So typically we will go into a project with three main types of standing sessions. Those sessions are around technical needs, and that is a focused discussion with technical resources on both sides. In addition to that, we have regularly scheduled status meetings and status reports to make sure that the customer has a clear view of where everything stands, any risks that have been raised, any decision points we need to approach, anything like that. In addition to that, we also have governance meetings. This is where we raise high-level issues, communicate high-level things to our highest level stakeholders. So that would typically include the sponsor of the project, that may be leadership within the customer's organization, or whoever they've specifically identified to be the leader for this project. So with all of those avenues of communication, we're able to ensure that we have clear visibility and raise problems as soon as they arise. This really goes to those same best practices that I mentioned before around mitigating issues with communication. It's impossible to have a project without any sort of risks or any sort of problems. It's just the nature. But with clear communication and effective mitigation, we can sidestep those issues.
When managing a project, there's a variety of ways to tackle it. Can you talk about the level of engagement, the level of touch that we have with our clients when we're walking them through this process?
Absolutely. With software implementations, you'll see it everywhere across the board. You may have some vendors who really are just offering a packaged solution right off the shelf, and you have vendors who really become your partners. We aim to be partners. We pride ourselves on our white glove approach, And what that means is we are dedicated to making sure that our customers have access to the resources they need, and we are very responsive to their needs. We don't just list the wicked items that need to be implemented. We really focus on understanding the why behind the use case. And that's really accomplished by deep understanding with our customers, building relationships. And that is one of the ways that virtual health, I think, differentiates ourselves in the marketplace. We really, really focus on a white glove approach and ensuring that we have a high level of customer service.
That's great. Thanks, Tracy. I think when customers come to us, they're thinking about the purchase of software, but so much of what they buy is people and process to get them to the point of success. So it's really important to think about all of those components that lead to a successful implementation, not just the software itself. So thank you for spending a little time with us today. This has been our next Future of Care chat with Tracy Styles, our Senior Director of Program Management. And I hope it's created some clarity for you on how we manage our processes and set clients up for success with the Helios platform. Thanks for joining us.